Hey, Bunkin fans, it's Strickland, the other half of the Nice Guys on Business. Doug recently interviewed Steve Shevlin, founder and CEO of Emerging Global Services, and Steve has written an amazing report called 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team, and you can get it free through a link in our show notes. Here is Doug and Steve talking a little bit more about it.
Tell me a little bit about the origin of Emerging Global and where you guys think that you've been successful when it comes to hiring and retaining people.
It's all about finding great talent. Having a successful company is all about tapping into great people.
Steve, where do you think that most people fall down on the job when it comes to not only retaining good people, but finding good people to begin with?
It has a lot to do with their own passion for their own business. And does that come through in an interview? You're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing you. They want to know, is this person passionate? I'm the owner of a company, so I'm going to be naturally excited and passionate about what I do.
So the information is in 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team. And I found as I was reading the 3 steps that whether you're brick and mortar, digital, entrepreneur, or corporate leader, it actually fits into any environment. Why do you think that that is so?
Because in all those environments, you're dealing with people. And they all need to be managed. They all need to be motivated, developed, invested in. All of these things are true to every great company. Great organizations have great people behind it.
Steve, I want to ask you about 2 numbers. 1,257, which is the episode number that you're on the Nice Guys on Business. And secondly, 3, as in 3 steps to staffing and retaining a winning team. Where did you come up with the 3? And how do you know that these are like the tried and true 3?
I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And so it's a lot of sweat equity. It's a lot of hard knocks. It's a lot of work. And it is some reading and some education along the way. There's no doubt. Trial and error as well.
So check out episode 1257 on the Nice Guys on Business, where Steve and I have a conversation on everything that it takes to get and retain a quality staff. And then download his document, 3 Steps to Staffing and Retaining a Winning Team. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Here's what's next on the Nice Guys on Business.
The base user of our customer is the insurance agent, who they're not working out of Fifth Avenue or somewhere in San Francisco or even Chicago or Dallas or Miami. They're on Main Street America, and being able to identify with them and understand why they exist, why they want what they want, and then building the technology to enable them, I think, is the beginning. And so that's a fundamental part of my DNA and our company's DNA and how we think about that. And that's not any different than any of the listeners who are really building something because A, they love it, but B, they love solving something or providing something to their community. And sort of the reward is obviously economics, but the reward is also hopefully the smile and the happiness that it brings to the customer.
In a court ruling U.S. versus Fishbein, a man subjected to potential incineration while wearing another man's suit is entitled to $10,000 worth of airline tickets. It's an obscure ruling, but a very important one to the Nice Guys on Business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community, check out today's guest, Philip Charles-Pierre. He has been creating technology that helps small to mid-sized businesses succeed. He's also left his mark on several industries and helped them digitally transform to create an overall better experience for them, their company, and of course for their bottom line. As the CEO of Semsee, his system streamlined the small commercial quoting process. He is revolutionizing his industry, and he brings his skill set to our entrepreneurial community today. I'm excited to talk to him because the thing that Philippe that has done, which is really cool from an entrepreneur's standpoint, he has bootstrapped the business from ground zero all on his own, built it with a partner. He also has been a part of intrapreneurship, which is really cool, building an organization within a larger organization. And he's also worked within the VC, the venture capital community as well, taking funds, getting funds from them too. So he kind of hits this subject today from a whole bunch of different angles. Philippe, I'm excited to talk to you. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you, Doug. Pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you here. I was listening to an interview that you had done on another podcast, which is usually the easiest way for me to research my guests. And, you have such a diverse background. So I don't know exactly what direction I want to start with. So maybe what I'll do is I'm going to lay it out to you. Maybe share a little bit of your story, your rise to where you have been, where you have come from to where you are now. And let's see exactly where the conversation takes us. So where did you get your start?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again, and Happy New Year to everyone. I started my career as an entrepreneur working at a not-for-profit, believe it or not, almost 22 years ago. And at that not-for-profit, which was raising funds for small business owners, especially in the women and minority communities, we decided to put up a website and to become digital. And this was before, the dot-com bubble burst. And that sort of got my feet wet of really being interested in understanding how technology and the digital space could sort of help to augment messages, but it also could help to build businesses and communicate with folks. And so from there, I did a lot of work in the startup space, building businesses and technology specifically geared towards industries that were brick and mortar industries, that were legacy industries, that needed technology to enable the folks who are part of that industry versus replacing them. I'm really big on how can we leverage technology to help an agent, whether it be an insurance agent or a travel agent or a real estate agent, or how do we have technology help people in certain communities better could not only communicate with each other, but build businesses so that they could do what they do best within the confines of their industry. And so started from that not-for-profit, actually did a stint in investment banking. But as you said, I've done some entrepreneur stuff, bootstrapping, VC-funded companies to today, where we're building what I think is a great enabling platform.
So talk to me about some of the, we have a number of people that are in our community that may be just in the startup phase of a business. They haven't even hit their first dollar coming in the door, or maybe they're in the early stage of being an entrepreneur. When do you know that it's time to put either a system in place or technology in place to help improve the system that you have, even if it's all a manual system right now?
Absolutely. So I'm a big fan of, you want to identify a couple of things early as you build a business that you want to digitize from day one, that allows you to focus on what your core strengths are as the entrepreneur, the leader, or the CEO or founder. But I agree that fundamentally, that's only a small part of it, because I do think that ultimately you want to learn the business. You're never going to know where you need technology until you're in it. Mm-hmm. We decided to do a lot of what Tin Man type MVPs out there before we fully digitized our product, in order to understand what our users needed, where they wanted us to go, and then we put the resources to digitize it. I don't think there's a formula in terms of it has to be X amount of revenue or X amount of users. Really, where it comes down to is this: if you believe in the business you've built, and all of a sudden people are using it and they're asking for more, mm-hmm. that's when you know you should start to digitize certain aspects of your business in order to get them that more. I think that's really, and you'll know it, right? You'll know it and you'll feel it when, oh my goodness, this is working. And
well, let me ask this. What are some of the symptoms oftentimes that a company will experience when they say, hey, I know it's time to upgrade our technology? For example, I'll just use my business as an example. I have a podcast production business, and we work with a number of different startups that are putting their shows together. We knew when we were caught in the email weeds, it was time to get out of email and put this in a project management platform. That was the beginning of all of these other pieces of technology that came into play. Like we started to have to work with Zapier, and we started to work with not only the Zap, but we started to work with the project management software, and we started working with the automated scheduling system, and then Google Drive, and all of these things. Right. And we needed a place to house all this stuff. So our symptom was simply overwhelm. It wasn't that we didn't have enough customers. It's almost like we had too much communication with the customers we had, and we couldn't be as responsive. That was a system for us. Is that typical among early stage startups?
I think it is. When I was at a startup called Site 59, we used to fax travel orders to hotels. And then at some point, it just became way too cumbersome to do that.
I love when somebody says, hey, can you fax it to me? I'm like,
exactly.
Does anybody have that anymore?
Exactly, right? And so that's when we knew when then we didn't have enough hands to actually to fax this stuff. That's when we knew in that example. At our current company, part of where we see it is when people are starting to ask for our customer service calls are coming in, not because there's a problem, but because they want to do more with our product. That's when we knew we needed to digitize, for example, how we take that in, and then how do we package that to influence how we do product management. That's sort of a really good second example. But ultimately, it is about when you start feeling pain, that's good pain. It's the same thing as exercise, right?
Right.
If you want to build muscle, there's got to be pain, and then you've got to recover. Once you start feeling the pain of usage and people really wanting more, that's when you have to digitize, because if they want more now, when you add, they're going to want more later.
Talk to the early stage entrepreneur that's in our community right now that is struggling with or deciding, when is it time to bring somebody else on? I know that through the different methods that you have built your businesses, whether bootstrapped or entrepreneurship or through VC, I know VCs are all big on building as much staff into the process as possible so that you can really start to scale your business, because that's what they're looking for. But how do you know when it's time to add somebody new onto your team?
That's a really good question, in that even with my current company at Semsee, I was solo for 3 or 4 months trying to really understand our business and what we needed to bring. And then we slowly started to bring in folks when we identified a need and I did not have that skill set. And so my strategy has always been to identify a need where, specifically where I didn't have a skill set, and hire a consultant to help me part-time, and then develop a relationship that then turns it into a full-time, either for them or they help us find or me find a full-time person to do that. And so that's how I have sort of thought about it, which is try to do it all yourself. I mean, it's just the nature of the thing, right?
That's the nature of being an entrepreneur, is I got to do it all myself.
I'm just going to do it all myself, right? But there comes a time you realize that there are certain skills you're going to be really good at, and it's going to be really hard. In fact, I think the hardest thing to do is to, as you scale, to find somebody to replace what you do well, even if you have to.
No doubt.
That's the hardest thing.
But Strick and I, my partner and I, have talked about this all the time. We stay within our, what's called, Gay Hendricks calls it his zone of genius. We stay within our zone of genius. When we start to linger outside of that, if you ever see me in a spreadsheet, if you ever see me building a system, you know that I am not in the right place. And it's probably not only not in the right place, but I'm doing it poorly too. And it's a struggle for me. So whenever I feel like that, I shouldn't be here. That little hair that goes up on the back of my neck is probably telling me the right stuff. It sounds like something very similar has happened to you as well.
That's exactly right. And so I think for me, it's a matter of really making sure I identify within the confines of the business we're building where my strengths are, and then being incredibly honest about that, and finding somebody who is both an expert and understands it, but also has a similar, if not the same amount of passion to solve that problem as you. Because I think that's the other thing that's one of those little secrets, which is there are plenty of people you can find who are good and will do the job and get the paycheck. The great ones are the ones where you will spark something in them similar to what you have as the entrepreneur, because then those are the folks who are going to take you to the next level. And that's where I think it matters.
How did you put yourself in a position to not only hear the words internally in your brain, I got to step away from this, but actually take the action and put somebody in place? Because there are so many people that not only did we go through this struggle, but I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in our community that go through the same struggle. It's like, I will hire somebody when enough money is coming in the door for me to hire somebody. And it's almost like that's the wrong approach. You need to put somebody in the position so that you can have more money coming in the door, because your time might be better spent on business development or lead gen, and certainly not in, accounting, bookkeeping, all of the stuff that it may not serve your business well. So how did you know, and how do you make that actually happen? Because as an entrepreneur, like you said earlier, it's hard to step away sometimes.
No, I think that's right. And it reminds me of the line from A Tribe Called Quest, which says, scared money don't make no money, right? and so you have to, the first thing I would say is, if you really believe in what you're building, you've already taken the leap. So just jump, right? I think that's the the fear that we have. But if you've already started, I think leaning into that entrepreneurial spirit, I think it is important. And part of that is deciding to invest, not necessarily too early, because I get that, but right before you have to have that person. It's kind of like a Formula One race, right? Braking not too soon, but certainly not too late, right?
Right.
You've got to figure out when that timing is, but you don't want to brake when you have to brake, because then it's too late. And so I think that's an important element to think about when hiring and finding the sort of the folks to help raise your awareness, raise the output, raise your revenues.
Although it may not appeal to everyone in our community because you have a highly niched audience and market for what you do. Can you share a little schematic of what you do, how you do it? And then when did you know that was going to fill a void that was in the market? Or are you sharing the ideas that other companies have done before you in creating a new system?
Yeah. Well, I think for those in your audience and yourself, Doug, you can probably imagine that finding insurance is really hard and can be painstaking. And it's painstaking for you as a business owner, but it's incredibly painstaking even for the insurance broker or agent who has to take your information and then be able to submit it to multiple carriers by hand, get quotes, compare it, come back to you with what they recommend. We've digitized that process, but we want to take it a step further. We not only digitize the process for you and for the agent to collect information, but we then help them understand which carriers or markets, as we call it in the industry, have appetite for that particular risk, whether it's a restaurant, a yoga studio, or a barbershop, or an auto body shop, right? And then we help the agent submit it to multiple carriers simultaneously. We then help them analyze it. But what we do that's also very different, and I think incredibly important, is that our platform enables the carriers at the point of sale help to identify the risks they want to write while the agent is looking to place that risk. And that kind of dynamic platform hasn't existed before. And so it solves a problem in that it allows the carriers to much more efficiently find and write risk. It allows the agent to more efficiently find the markets for the risks that come through their door, because 95% of small business insurance still comes through an agency. I don't think that will change because it's a consultative sale. But then ultimately, it helps the end user, i.e. the small business owner, get better coverage at the best price possible. And the one thing I think that COVID has taught us all, maybe among a lot of other things, is you need to be covered, but you also need to be covered for the right things, especially as the world becomes so much more dynamic as the days go by.
What's some of the stuff that you are, when you try to introduce a product that might be a little bit of a disruption in an industry, or something that is unique or brand new service in an industry that is fairly conservative, like the insurance industry, even with technology, it's still a conservative industry. What's one of the struggles that you had in introducing a product like that to a community that's conservative, and how did you overcome it as a business owner?
Well, I think overcoming it wasn't easy, but it helped in the fact that I'm a person who's helped build technology before, but built technology for mainstream businesses. So I'm not a East Coast, West Coast, high flying tech guy who thinks he's smarter than anybody else. You have to first identify with your customer. We love our customer, who the base user of our customer is the insurance agent, who they're not working out of Fifth Avenue or somewhere in San Francisco or even Chicago or Dallas or Miami. They're on Main Street America, and being able to identify with them and understand why they exist, why they want what they want, and then building the technology to enable them, I think, is the beginning. And so that's a fundamental part of my DNA and our company's DNA and how we think about that. And that's not any different than any of the listeners who are really building something because A, they love it, but B, they love solving something or providing something to their community. And sort of the reward is obviously economics, but the reward is also hopefully the smile and the happiness that it brings to the customer. And that's how we think about it. And so for us, it was never about replacing anybody. It was about enabling and really making for the insurance experience to be the least painful as possible for everybody involved, but essentially provide risk mitigation for the hard work that everyday small business owners have out there, and making sure that they don't lose everything in case of an accident or God forbid an act of God type of weather scenario.
One of the most challenging parts of any business journey is explaining to your market exactly what you do. And I don't know if that was a struggle, or what's the door opener for you when you are talking to a new prospect? What is the thing that gets you in the door the fastest, the easiest, with the least amount of friction?
Sure. I think it's part and parcel with the previous question you had, which is the hardest thing we had to overcome is legacy sort of processes. Not necessary technology. We weren't replacing
this is
technology.
How we've always done it. We've always done it this way.
That's
and,
exactly right.
Like, doesn't mean it has to continue to be done that way.
That's right. When people ask, and what's your biggest competitor? Our biggest competitor is the fact that insurance agents have made not great technology or bad technology look good for a long time. Mm-hmm. And by doing so, they've created their own processes that becomes much harder to replace.
Yep.
And so it's going to them and saying, we understand why you've built this a certain way. We're not trying to actually add to it. What we're trying to do is say, you're spending 40 or 50 hours a week doing this thing collectively that should take you 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And by saving you the 2 hours, you're not eliminating your job. It allows you to do more marketing. It allows you to do more customer service, client success. It allows you to upsell and cross-sell, and really being able to identify the problem in as non-threatening a way as possible, but really saying, not only is it's going to save you, but by saving you, it's going to augment your bottom line.
I love it. It's what's really interesting is oftentimes that's the struggle that most entrepreneurs have. It's not in the deliverable, it's in presenting the deliverable to their prospective client. What's one of the struggles that you've had maybe of recent, and what you're doing to resolve it when it comes to reaching your market even more effectively?
Well, I think for us, it's especially in technology, there's always a lot of noise in the marketplace, where whether you have actual competitors who do exactly what you do, or folks who do things that are similar but not the same, and being able to very crisply articulate what we do at the same time as differentiating yourself without having to sort of, put down anybody else.
Yeah, right.
That really is the most, I think, difficult and acute sort of challenge that I think we face within our industry, because there's a lot going on in the industry. There's a lot of money being spent in developing products and technology. And so, I think insurance agents and the like are being fed a lot. And so how do you sort of wade through that noise? And for us, it's very simple. We have a very clear explanation of what we do and why we do it. And what we don't do is try to make it sound different depending on who the audience is. And so we try to be clear as hell. And I think that's a differentiator, especially in technology, because ultimately most technology tries to be everything to everybody. And we've decided we're going to be what we are, because what we are is what we think you need. Agreed.
They say that, out of every adversity, there usually comes a gift. I'm curious what your gift has been in this horrible time that the world has been experiencing with COVID and everybody being inside pretty much for the last 2 years. What's the gift that your company or you have received from that?
Yeah, I'm going to give you two. One is on the personal side, the gift of time with family. And I know that sounds hokey, but my wife and I are both rather, generally busy, and we have a now 6-year-old, and being in the same house with her while we both worked, but then removing commuting and being able to lunch together, I think was a tremendous opportunity for us. And I hope she cherishes it, because I think we certainly didn't, knowing that at some point she's going to be, out of the nest, just like your folks are. And then the second is, because of our funding situation, we were very fortunate, having raised money right before COVID. It allowed us for a year to really focus in on perfecting the product for the agent. And in particular, insurance was not a negative during COVID. It actually became very important and much more acute, and people became more acutely aware of it, both on the business side in terms of small business owners, but also agents and carriers. And it allowed us to therefore to really fine tune our product and make it even that much more powerful for our customers.
So, Philippe, I'm excited to get some really positive feedback from our community. Your experience and your wisdom is the wealth that comes to the show today. And I knew when I first saw your application to get on the show, I think you had a PR agency or a company that had reached out to me. I wasn't necessarily thinking about the insurance side. I was thinking more about what kind of business experience will he be able to lend, and wisdom would he be able to lend to our community? And without even having aired the episode at the beginning of the episode yet, when you started talking about bootstrap, VC, and entrepreneurship as your experience, I knew that your message was going to be great. So I appreciate you sharing your message. What would be the best way for someone that's in our community to either get more information about you, or maybe even take advantage of some of the services that you have?
Sure. You certainly, thank you again, Doug. I appreciate that. So semsee.com, semsee.com is the best place to learn more about us. And you can always email at info@semsee.com. You can sort of send it to me, Philip, Philip. Again, info@semsee.com. And happy to answer. I try to answer every email, mostly because I don't get enough to make it where, I'm not one of those people where I have so much I can't get to it. So happy to answer any questions related to insurance or not.
That's awesome. And I was reading your blog before we connected today, and you got a lot of good posts on there. So if those in our community that are interested in just seeing how technology can affect your business, a little bit more about what Philippe does with his industry, also check out his blog right on his website at semsee.com. And I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes. Philippe, thanks for being here on the show today. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Nice guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. And especially in today's episode, Philippe is an excellent and nice guy. Special thanks to Philip Charles-Pierre. All of his information, including access to his website and his company, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Are you sure the legal department cleared this? Okay then. For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Hey, if these bozos want to get sued, that's their business. Leave me out of it. Wait, we have a legal department?